Dr. Piper, in your book, Bloodlines, Race, Cross, and the Christian, one of the things that really stood out when I read it was suggesting that there may be more white supremacists now than there actually were in 1968 at part of the height or the aftermath of a lot of the changes in the civil rights movement. I wondered, how did you reach this conclusion, and why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a defensible position or not, but here's what I had in mind. By white supremacist, I have in mind a blue mohawk with a swastika and a neo-Nazi in your face, out in the culture, you stink, you, and then all the four-letter words. That wasn't as prominent in the 60s. Now, I couldn't defend saying there are more people who are racist today, or there are more people who are pretty clear in their dislike for or hatred for blacks. But what I meant was, if we think that things have gotten better, the one thing I want to say is there's a resurgence, there's a reactionary resurgence in our day of anti-Semitism and anti-black, and just some of it has to do with America, some of it's neo-Nazi kind of thing that is just so in your face. I mean, it's the kind of people who will lasso an African-American person and drag them behind their pickup truck until the head comes off. That happens in the 90s and the 10s, not 40 years ago.
Do you think that the increasing racial and ethnic diversity that we see virtually everywhere, do you think that brings out more racism, or do you think that that's really actually helping to expose and to eradicate in some ways? Not eradicate completely, but help to tamp it down.
That's a very, very good question, and the answer is both. I think separation breeds ignorance. Ignorance breeds suspicion. Suspicion creates misunderstandings and stereotypes, and that pushes farther away. However, togetherness doesn't automatically breed respect. In fact, you throw some kids together in a classroom, whatever, I would say the dislike can go deeper. They can click up sooner. They can be offended more quickly. They might have had some kind of mild stereotype over there, and now a group of black kids watch these white kids, and they just can't stand the way they're treating each other, or the way they think, or the way they're acting, or whatever, and that goes deeper, and then it goes the other way. So this is why the book is about the gospel, not about strategies of integration. I believe in integration. I believe in diversity and togetherness, but I don't believe it as a solution.
Well, why do you think, I mean, the book is very powerful in drawing out the gospel resources for Christians to draw on, but why do you think Bible-believing Christians, gospel-believing Christians, have such a difficult time believing and ultimately obeying what the Bible does teach about the gospel and race?
Sin at root. We're all sinners, and when sin mixes with certain cultural givens, then self-justifications and rationalizations grow like weeds in a field of sin. And I'll speak mainly out of experience because I was there. I was a Bible-believing, fundamental Christian growing up in a Bible-believing fundamental home who argued biblically that intermarriage was wrong. And argued biblically, therefore, that anything that led to it was wrong. Well, if that's your starting point, which it was for my dad, it was, then you can't be in the same church because the kids are going to be in the same kids group, and that's where you find your wife. Where else are you going to find her? I mean, you see the implications of that one issue. So I could just remember I better not say which relative it was, because they'd still be alive. My dad's in heaven, so I'd say whatever I want, because I love the guy so much. I respect him so highly, and God used him so greatly, which is why we should be so thankful for grace, right? But anyway, he said, red birds mate with red birds, bluebirds with bluebirds, blackbirds with blackbirds. That's the way God meant it to be. In fact, I can remember him saying in a letter to me, Johnny, If God had meant there to be milk chocolate humanity, instead of real chocolate and real white chocolate, real brown chocolate, white chocolate, he would have set things up differently. He wouldn't have races if he wanted them to all just disappear into kind of a homogenized group. That was compelling to me as a kid. I mean, what can you say? So there I am, embracing not only that principle, but all the separation that comes from it, and then all the stereotypes that are bred by the separation, and all the sinfulness that moves into the structures, and everything is just flowing from what felt like a providentially, biblically warranted conviction. So the answer is that there are these bad arguments mingled with my sin, mingled with cultural pressures that create rationalizations which hold the church in its grip for centuries.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a few more. That you mentioned Southern segregation. We could also throw in there slavery in the United States. We could throw in South African apartheid. These were all views, these were all practices that were accepted and defended from a biblical basis, particularly by Reformed Christians. And yet you walk through the 5 points of Calvinism in your book to show how they really cut out the heart of those arguments. Can you walk through a little bit of how you do that?
Well, let me say something first of all about American slavery. The biblical justification for slavery was the slave passages in the New Testament, none of which were race-based. The slavery in the New Testament was very different in that regard.
Sure.
So I just want to say that Christians had to have massive blind spots, even if their arguments were valid for slavery. Because the Bible is clear, man-stealing is a capital crime. Our whole system was based on man-stealing.
Right, yeah.
So it was indefensible. Race-based slavery was indefensible. Slavery, you got to do some exegetical work there to get to the point where Paul in Philemon undermines the slave system. So that's the first thing to say. With regard to the Reformed view, non-Reformed and Reformed all defended slavery, and there were non-Reformed and Reformed abolitionists.
That's true, right.
Now, all I know to say with why the Bible, or you could say Reformed theology, sets some people free and not others, is because God variably opens our eyes. He variably overcomes our sinful blind spots. Like, just take me. I mean, I bring everything back because I'm the sinner I know best, and my early coming to Reformed theology didn't immediately do that. That took. It's just like missions. I kind of woke up to the passion for the nations in 1983. I fell in love with the Reformed faith in 1968 through 71. So what's going on? Blindness. Just blindness, concern for other things, not thinking about missions very much at all. And suddenly it's pushed. It's just pushed in your, like in your face. And the same thing with other issues in life. I mean, the people that are all hot and bothered about racism right now, maybe they're not hot and bothered about abortion, or maybe they're not hot and bothered about wealth and the disparities. We all have settled in with certain strange things that shouldn't be, which 100 years from now we'll look back and say, how could they even believe that? How could they walk with that? And so all I can say is Reformed people had to not think through the roots of their 5 points to their end. They couldn't think them through. They just stopped part way and got some comfort for themselves, for their eternal security or whatever, and didn't realize that they're bound together with humanity in their sinfulness, and the grace that totally saves them, apart from anything in themselves, should dispose them to embrace unconditionally other people into the family of God through faith alone, apart from any skin color or economic distinctive. They just didn't take it there. Seasons happen, don't they? I mean, history seems to be a series of lapsing into blindness to some sins while other sins are becoming crystal clear. And everybody, the emotionally acceptable virtues and passions are right now human trafficking You cannot go wrong to be in favor of human trafficking today, to be in favor of opposing it.
Right, yeah, right.
Because that's cool.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
And the very people, they're all hot under their collar about that, are probably sleeping around. They're probably sleeping around. It's just like in the late 70s and 80s, I shouldn't remember, I shouldn't say any denomination, but there was a more or less liberal denomination. One of our young women from our church went out and served with them for a summer in New Mexico to help in some projects on poverty. And these people were passionate for justice, and they were sluts in their private life. She was absolutely appalled. That's the kind of selective thing that happens in history over and over again.
Yeah. A call really for us to be vigilant about that gospel and challenging one another and returning again and again to the Word, which I think you do really well in this book. So thank you.
And listening to the witnesses of other centuries.
Yeah.
You know, because C.S. Lewis made the biggest deal. Yeah. Chronological snobbery. Yeah. The very things that we are taking for granted will be looked back on in 50 or 100 years and say, how could they have even thought that?
Yeah. Yeah.